What do they want? Equal rights? A world free of misogyny and abuse? The end of the patriarchy? How very typical for a demographic that makes up over half of the world's population to expect the world to magically give in to such pie-in-the-sky demands as being treated like human beings, being seen as innocent before proven guilty, and having full bodily autonomy. What do you need bodily autonomy for? What are you going to be doing with that body? When we stop you doing what you want with your body so that the state can control reproductive and domestic labour. Think of the issues, please. Women, they want rights. They've had it up to here, and they're not going to take it anymore. But the internet is in their way. It sees them with their breasts. And because they have those breasts, the internet knows that they can't be trusted. Breasts are dangerous. I mean, look at them. They could stick a knife in you very, very easily. Breasts are dangerous. They're sexy, and sexy things are powerful. Anyone with breasts, well, they hold the secret power of boner bending. And that makes them dangerous. Beware of the boner benders, for they will lure you into their orbit, being nice to you and generally treating you with respect. But all that time, the hive mind of the internet knows that they can't be trusted. If they can boner bend, what else can they do? How can we ever trust a word they say? What if they're lying? What if your boner had its feelings hurt? Well, what if that? Well, as a lab-grown, fully automated luxury woman designed specifically for the purpose of writing sycophantic, hyper-patriotic diatribes for the Daily Telegraph, the newspaper with tits on the third page, so you know it's got integrity, I am here to reassure you that women, they're fine actually. They're a big group. Some are lovely, some less so, but they're just people. They're just people. But wait, don't leave just yet, because I want to make my case to you with the example of Amouranth, famed Twitch streamer of hot tubbing fame, and the way that the internet treated her. It treated her like absolute shit as it happens, and I'm allowed to say that, despite writing for a right-wing newspaper, because everyone on our editorial board is the average age of Ghost, and thus none of them know they're Twitch streamers from their TikTokers. I can say practically anything I like, and none of my bosses can stop me, as long as I keep this strictly in the world of the online. So come with me. Take my hand, and let me ask you why the fuck so many people are victim-blaming literal abuse victims for their own abuse. That's fucked up. Amouranth is a well-known Twitch streamer known for hot tub streaming, as well as ASMR and modelling. As essentially a sex worker, she suffered from a lot of the objectification issues many sex workers online face, i.e., a large part of her fan base seemed to be under the impression that she would one day have sex with them, that they were entitled to her body, a fucked up idea that was reinforced by her public image, that she was consistently single and, by extension, available to fit into this parasocial sexual fantasy for those in their audience that are unable to understand the difference between a performance and the person doing the performing. Given that the assumption that a single hot tub streamer is automatically sexually available to the audience is patently ridiculous and absurdly sexist, let's face it, I wouldn't be bringing this up at all if it were not for the fact that Keemstar, one of the most famous streamers of all time, decided this was good enough reason to frame her as a deceitful bitch who'd been scamming her audience. Because it turns out that Amouranth had her husband for pretty much the entire time she'd been streaming. Again, this shouldn't make a difference in how they treated her. And yet this isn't the end of how twisted this gets, because the fact that she had a husband came out when she outed him as an abuser, with multiple receipts. See video, see texts, see lots of voice recordings, see almost everyone on the internet having seen it and seeing very clearly her points of view. In fact, Keemstar accepted in his denouncement of Amaranth that her husband was abusing her. And even further, she explicitly wanted to tell her audience the entire time and was forced to stay silent by her abusive husband because it would be bad for business. Yes, a woman in the public eye was being abused, forced to stream, having her dog's lives threatened, and essentially being put in a fancy prison by her husband, who controlled her entire business, including having two-factor authentication on all of her bank accounts. And yet, in the eyes of not only Keemstar, though he's the most noticeable, but so many of the internet's finest male minds, she is the one in the wrong, because she wasn't single when they thought that she might be. Ring, ring. I'm getting a call from my editors. Ring. Hold on. Hello? No, she's not a trans woman. She's a white cis woman. And he's talking about her somehow woke now as well. Listen, we have tits inside of our newspaper for the sole purpose of attracting horny men. And you're telling me I'm meant to believe that our editorial line is that sex workers deserve misogynistic abuse? Okay, well, what if this were J.K. Rowling? Okay, yes. Thank you. Okay, sorry about that, everyone. Just needed to reassure the powers that be that decrying misogyny is in their interests. Just for now, for me, imagine that Amaranth is a MAGA hat-wearing, frothing at the mouth transphobe. Because if she were, apparently, I would be much more free to make her case in the British media. Good? Got it. Good. Okay, let us continue. Keemstar and others like him as simply victim blaming, and as if blaming a victim of domestic abuse for her own trauma was not inherently bad enough on its own, it's mixed in with a healthy dose of patriarchy. By implying Amaranth was deceitful for giving the impression that she was single, we have to accept the framing that the reason people watching her was the possibility that they would one day fuck her. But they, by becoming fans of her streams, were not only entitled to her time and attention, but also her body. Another person's body does not belong to you just because you paid them attention. People don't owe you sex because you gave them your time or your money, and the fact that she wasn't single shouldn't and doesn't change a single thing about the relationship between her and her audience, unless the audience had an extremely fucked up version in their heads of the relationship. Like, unless those members of her audience that are blaming her for her husband insisting on keeping their marriage a secret believe that she literally owes them sexual favours for watching her content. When was the penny going to drop for these people? Because it would have to eventually, right? How long would they stay content merely watching her before demanding what they believed they owed? This is, by definition, textbook misogyny. And it would be, whether or not it took place in the context of victim blaming of someone in a horrific and unenviable situation. But the fact that it does makes it 10 times worse. And this goes beyond Amaranth herself, and even beyond sex workers in general, who face these issues time and time again. When you were in school, do you remember how the boys in your class would treat any girl who got a promiscuous reputation? If you've forgotten, or didn't notice, there is a subset of men who, when they learn someone is open to having sex with someone, act like they are owed sex by that person, and cannot handle the idea that she might not want to sleep with them. Well, you slept with her, well, you slept with me. You know, that kind of thing. As if every guy is just equal and doesn't matter and there's no personal difference in that. From the minute we start absorbing the media shaped by our societal values and expectations, we absorb and internalize this Madonna whore complex into our minds, as it is known. Either a woman is a pure and sexless monument to be protected, or a disgraced sex object with no utility beyond her reproductive capacity. Please ask yourself if you believe that any sex worker owes you sex. Why? Should she not have the right to say no? This isn't like a gay marriage wedding cake situation either. Before anyone makes that point, making a cake is not remotely comparable to having sex with someone in terms of personal boundaries, potential for violence, and a whole host of other reasons. Women do not owe you anything. And the fact that you've seen their cleavage while they stream from hot tubs does not change that. Furthermore... Ring. Oh, Jesus. Editors again. Hold on. Hello, Bridget Empire speaking. Yes. Yes, okay, I'll stop talking about Amaranth now, I suppose. I don't want to lose you any readers. But just out of curiosity, if this situation were happening to a man, how differently would you be reacting? I thought so. See, I don't understand how that's different. Fine, okay. Okay, where was I? All right, Amber Heard! In excellent YouTuber The Cavernacle's recent video on the subject, he highlighted several reactions from people comparing Amaranth to Amber Heard. For those of you who are living under a rock earlier this year, Amber Heard appeared in court earlier this year for allegedly defaming her now ex, an actor known for playing the creepiest man in every single Tim Burton movie, Johnny Depp, when she successfully accused him of sexual, physical, and emotional abuse during their relationship, with Depp taking her to court to argue his reputation had been damaged. A massive surge of internet commentary channels appeared, cheering on Johnny Depp and shit-slinging at Amber Heard, characterizing her as a serial liar, as manipulative, and recasting Depp as the real victim in the scenario, despite Depp having been previously found guilty of these charges already. Some of the same people that rallied against Heard have since come forward in support of Amaranth in the scenario we were just talking about, but the fact that there are still people who are comparing the two and casting them both as villains is very telling. As is the calls to designate people like Evan Rachel Wood as the next Amber Heard, following her abuse by sadistic clown uncle hybrid Marilyn Manson, or Olivia Wilde being the next Amber Heard, for leaving Ted Lasso for that one guy from One Direction. The common thread here is that celebrity women are being judged guilty before proven innocent, punished for being conventionally attractive women in the public eye who dare to speak out against the men in their life, and the sick fact that there is a subset of men on the internet who self-insert themselves as any man in the scenario, and the very fact that a man is being accused of abusing a woman is somehow an accusation on them, and by extension, on all men. Their instinct is to believe the man in the scenario, no matter how credible the allegations are against them. And this, again, is an indicator of how ingrained sexism has become in their thought processes. The men in these scenarios deserve respect and empathy, but the women somehow don't, because they exist to be spectacles, to be observed and, ultimately, consumed. This is, I should say, for anyone who's feeling quite defensive right now, this is entirely subconscious in most cases. But if, in multiple cases of domestic abuse against women, you're taking the man's side and accusing the woman of lying consistently, no matter what evidence is presented to you, well then, you might be a misogynist. Ring, ring. Ring, ring. It is perfect. Hello again. No, listen, I don't make the rules. I didn't write the dictionary. What would you call it if not misogyny? Locker room talk? Well, I don't know what your locker rooms are like, but have I heard of Gamergate? Lord Nonsbottom, I had no idea you were so online. Did you know that Gamergate was inherently misogynistic from its core too? In fact, the aftershocks of the Gamergate hate campaign are still being felt today. Case in point, this Amaranth situation... No, I don't want to lose my job. Yes, I am willing to lie for money. Okay. Okay, goodbye. Sorry about that, everyone. Just between you and me, viewers, while my editors are out for their lunch break, this is the same current of misogyny we saw exploding in Gamergate, whose aftershocks ranged from the Trump campaign to the current transphobic media circle jerk in the UK, through Steve Bannon and Graham Linehan respectively, although at the time Graham was still friends with trans women, before he decided he would turn against them for not liking his jokes. In fact, the popularity of the so-called manosphere on YouTube and Twitch demonstrates that the problems with misogyny in online spaces that became so unavoidable during Gamergate have not gone away so much as briefly submerged between the surface, only to bubble up in different demographics into hate movements directed at denigrating women from all corners of the internet, whether this be the rise of Andrew Tate, Comicsgate, Jordan Peterson, or the rabid anti-feminist buffet that was the reaction to Amber Heard versus Johnny Depp. In a very real way, Gamergate never truly ended. Much like, say, I might get flack for comparing it to this, but just for the sake of analogy, Italian fascism. The online space, much like Italy after the Second World War, stick with me, never went through a process of de-radicalization. Instead, the misogynist undercurrent learned and evolved and found new ways to convince people without getting into as much overt trouble and finding new people to manipulate in the process. Alternatively, if you are my editors, and some of you statistically are, everything is fine actually. No, seriously, the party line is now apparently misogyny is cool as fuck, especially when it happens to young women, queer women, online women, women from ethnic minorities, and basically it's fine unless you're someone who would normally be subject to misogyny, but can usually just throw money at the problem because their uncle is mates with the king. Or alternatively, someone willing to throw a bunch of minorities under the bus. So, if I'm doing my calculations correct, the only women who aren't literal landed gentry we're allowed to feel sorry for are J.K. Rowling and Katie Hopkins. Interesting. Yeah, that sounds right. That's about what I expected from my corporate overlords. You know, I thought they would let me write about this, I really did. But I seem to have let myself get a little too comfortable in this position. I completely forgot the British media machine is only willing to defend people from misogynistic hate if it can use the opportunity to punch down at queer people, at brown people, or preferably both. If you are any of those people, Jesus Christ, it's only going to get worse in the UK from here on out. Buckle up, I'm here with you. For everyone else, please consider supporting the women in your life today, particularly those who are most vulnerable. And Amaranth, or anyone in a similar situation, if you happen to watch this, I hope you're okay. And I hope you're safe. Please talk to someone if you can and try to get the help that you need as best you can, while keeping yourself safe and unhurt. Until next time, Poppets. Hi everyone. Thank you for watching. I have a Patreon. Would you like to contribute? If you do, I'll read your name at the end of the credits, and that'd be cool. My patrons so far are Scarjan, Joey Cobalt, Naomi Wayne, and Narania. The Patreon starts from only £1 a month, and the pound's worth very little, and increasingly little as it goes along, so if you want to throw $1 in there, it'll probably be worth about 10 cents afterwards. So, I mean, if you're an American, you like throwing money away, there's a Briton here that could use it. Also, I have a podcast with my friend Luxander, and that's MKG Podcast. I'm going to link that in the bottom. You can also donate to me coffee for a one-time donation. Okay, thank you very much.